Hello everybody, welcome back. As you can see, this is a whole different format. This is something I've never done before, but there's always a first for everything, and this is the first of something. So, as you can see, it's a tier list, and this is all the games that we have played up to this point, like complete playthroughs. So, if you notice, there's not going to be Alan Wake 2 or High on Life or Eternal Punishment or anything like that, because those games are not completed. So basically what I wanted to do was, I have some notes here, and while I'm going to be reading my notes, I'm also going to go off the top of the dome and just go with what I feel these games personally rank. From what I feel, I don't have any F ranks, so I mean, this is just kind of like, that's null and void. So let me just go ahead and let's throw in a text box there. Oh, you know what, we'll just leave it be. We'll leave it be for now. We'll leave it alone. We'll just, damn it, there we go. We'll just kind of let this free flow a little bit. Maybe I'll change my mind. So first on our list is Mortal Kombat Deception. Obviously the Conquest mode, we're not talking like the actual fighting aspect, because that's fine. That's beautiful. That's a classic. We're talking about the story mode. And, you know, I understand that this is like what changed it to be what it is today, but at the same time, that doesn't mean it's perfect. It's not perfect. And that doesn't stop Shujinko from being a complete anal bead. So we're gonna go ahead and put that in C. That's where that's gonna go. That's gonna go in C. And now we're gonna jump to, I try to get these in order, okay? So some of them might be out of order as far as like series for series, but I tried my best to get them in order. So next is going to be obviously Armageddon's Conquest. So building off the previous story, Shujinko is only mentioned as a prisoner, as he should be, because he is a prisoner. Nobody likes Shujinko in early Deception days. And if you do, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for whatever happened to you. And the reason why Shujinko is only mentioned as a prisoner is because you're Taven. You're a demigod that was supposed to fight with Dagon and Blaze as a game. It's just a game. Nothing more, nothing less. It's literally a game that's set up, and his parents set it up, and they knew that Armageddon was coming, but they're like, let's make it a little game. We'll see who of the two is stronger than one another, and if Taven wins, then humanity will win off of his armor. And if Dagon wins, then everybody dies. So there's a contingency plan for both. And so Taven wins and nothing happens. However, if we're just gonna scope it off of gameplay and how much it changed and how much the everything kind of opened up, like as far as like what you can explore, how you can interact with things, I will say it is pretty solid. I think it earns its spot in the B. It's definitely a solid B, at least for me. So now we're getting into the meat of it. We're getting into Alan Wake Remastered. Because it's one of its kind, I just went ahead and I just wrote them out how I did the playlist. So it was just like writing all these out, then I did a little snippet. So Alan Wake, the remaster, that's honestly, we're just gonna go ahead and throw it up here. Let's just go ahead and get that out the way, because we all know it. It's a classic. It originally came out in 2010, but we went ahead and played the remaster, which, oh my god, it's not really a game that's jump scares. It's a game it's world building. Sorry. So you don't just see it, you hear it, you read about it, and as you're reading about it and you're seeing what Alan writes, the world slowly shifts around you subtly. And that is what makes your mind bend as you play this. That's what makes it a good game. as well as the story itself too. Like that ending is just insane. It drives me nuts because I hate cliffhangers, but it's such a good cliffhanger that I was actually cool with it. Not that my opinion matters much, but hey, we are where we are. All right, jumping into the next game, we have Ollie Ollie World. Ollie Ollie World. Okay. Definitely surprised to see that there was a story mode. Okay, because I remember playing, I think it was the first Ollie Ollie, and it was just kind of like this half pipe game that you could just hop on rails and uh, do stuff like that. Just kind of like a track game where like you selected different tracks and you played a game on that. So in this game, you have to ascend to skate godhood because for whatever reason, we're next in line for it. There's not really a mention of why. Now, it was hard, but for if you were to be a new, I'm trying to make this not only my thoughts, but kind of like what I feel if I were to tell other people about it. And based on that, I'm gonna put Ollie Ollie World in A rating, only because there are parts of it that are challenging that I feel like if you're not ready to, take on the challenge, which it does make it fun, but some people don't like it. Some people don't like a hard challenge, and it is filled with those type of challenges. So people that are 100%ers and all that, and that aren't super crazy about challenges, it's there. But honestly, I love it. It's easily one of the most, like, as far as like a fun type of game. What I mean by fun is like lighthearted. It's definitely top for lightheartedness, top for like just like little quirky characters and things like that. So much fun. And now we jump into, where should at right there, the Punisher. Punisher, as you all know, I'm sure I've said it during the playthrough, I love the Punisher. One of like my favorite heroes from the Marvel verse. But the game has its problems. It's not the most crisp on controls, and that's why I hate to do it. Wait. Yeah, I want to continue editing. Jeez. Okay. And that's why I don't know what happened there. And that's why we're gonna peg it. Now you want to act up. Okay, let's go ahead and fix this. This wasn't how this was supposed to go at all. Anyway, we're putting this in B because it's not the most crisp on controls, but what saves it is all the different types of kills you can do, all the different types of attacks you can do, all the different types of weapons you can acquire, all the different types of interrogations, and all the hidden secrets throughout the games, and the mentions, and the little things like the license plate, the Amazing Spider-Man 129 that, that's the first appearance of the Punisher. So it definitely earns its spot. But at the same time, the control is pretty clunky for the time. I mean, 2004, you also had games like Metal Gear Solid 3, which we're going to hop into, just not yet, because we're going to talk about Eternights. Eternights, for me, is literally just a sliver away from an S rank, and the only reason is that I wanted more. Like, I felt like I just, it's so good. It's one of those games that it's imbued with so many different styles of like gaming that you can see from the surface, but also feel as you're playing it, like the inspiration of it. And you can tell that the developers really cared about what they were going to present to you, and that's why you want more. That's why you want to, it's like having the best sandwich, and then you're at the last bite and you bite your finger. You wanted more, but you just bit your finger. And so because of that, because I bit my finger, we're putting it in A. Hate to do it. Like I said, a sliver away. Literally one sliver away. Okay, so now, next game, Death's Door. Where are you at? You are right there. A surprise for me. It was a surprise for me because I've never read anything about this game, never heard about it. It was free on the for PlayStation Plus members, so I got it, and that was it. Then I was like, hey, what game should I play for the channel? And I'm like, there's this game, Death's Door, might be interesting. Turned it on, and oh my god, I have no regrets. What an amazing experience from front to back. The story of the game, as well as the gameplay and the different attacks you get throughout, as far as like your magic and your arrows and the different weapons you can get. We literally 100%ed the game on the channel. Like that's how much I've loved this game. So, but again, it wasn't totally perfect. So because of that, it is an A. It is an A for me. But again, like Eternights, I just wanted a little bit more, because the ending for me was just, especially for Death's Door, the ending was just kind of like, it was good, but at the same time it leaves you with this feeling of, well, okay, that's great, but why? Or what happens now? Or, you know, even if you 100% the game, you're like, okay, but what happens now? So that's the only thing for me. That's the only thing, because I feel like that part of, but other than that, Death's Door, Eternights, anything that I put on this list, I don't hate any of these games, okay? Like, okay, I'll be honest with you, I did numerical as well as letter ranks, because I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, and Raw Danger scored the lowest. It's like I have it at a 4 to 5, and part of me loves that game, because I remember first, like I said in the playthrough, I remember when I first played it, and I was like, what the hell is going on with this game? It's like this fever dream. But we're going to get into more of that when I get to it. It's at the, I think I have it very last. Hold on, let me see. Close to it. So we're going to go ahead and go back to here. The next game is Infinite Fusion. Pokemon Infinite Fusion. Let's click out of that right quick. We'll just have it highlighted. So, Pokemon Infinite Fusion for me, it was a lot of fun. I do wish you got additional information on like the legendaries, like Celebi and you know, other. I don't want to go too much into it as far as who the legendaries are that you should get information on, because I want to leave it up to you as the player. Even though I have the playthrough on here, if you're just watching this video and seeing my rank for whatever reason, if you know, you happen to stumble upon it, which thanks for the view, by the way, but at the same time, I'm sorry if I'm droning. I do want to keep it kind of like under wraps for the legendaries, so I'm just going to leave it at some of the information for the legendaries is just not there. You kind of have to guess or look it up. But don't get me wrong, that doesn't stop this from being one of the most memorable playthroughs I've ever had for Pokemon, like ever, just because of like the literally infinite fusion, infinite styles of gameplay, because you can do anything with any Pokemon. You can fuse themselves. You can fuse like a Charizard with a Charizard and have a whole new fusion that's different stats, different whatever and all that, and it's still crazy. It's still like a crazy looking Pokemon, or it's a crazy statted Pokemon. So because of that, because of there's like a nearly endless strategy, it still scores high. It's an A. Literally, again, like the other two games, or three actually, all in the A rank, slivers away from S rank. And this one, it's literally only because I remember searching for the legendary for like, well, multiple legendaries for like 3 or 4 episodes until you get, I had to look it up. I had to look it up because there was nothing, no NPC said anything that kind of led you to this breadcrumb trail or nothing. And that's it. That's the only thing I had a problem with. And you might call it nitpicking. I'm calling it nitpicking too. Like I feel bad for it because I didn't have a bad time playing it. Like, I feel bad. I feel almost disgusting for putting this in A. Like, how dare I? I'm gonna make these a little smaller. So we're gonna have more games up. Alright. Put that up right there. Okay, now, next game is, we're getting into a juicy one. Devil May Cry 1. Guys, it's a B. Hate me, despise me, say what you will, but for me it's a B. Only because it's aged. It has predominantly aged, and not in a graphics. I mean, control-wise. For me, I will always choose controls of a game over graphics. You can show me a game that looks like it's from the Atari 2600, and as long as there's fluidity to the controls, I can look past the graphics. I've never been a stickler for like, if something's beautiful, I'll point it out. Like when I first played the Uncharted games, I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing, it looks so gorgeous. But that doesn't mean I'm going to judge every single game based on the graphics. So the first game, the combat's wicked, it feels good. Killer soundtrack, there's like super paced game, like super quick, and you gotta have strategy when you play. You gotta have and I love that. I love that it's a hack and slash type of game, but you also kind of have to choice your attacks. Like, are you gonna shoot, or are you gonna start with the sword attack? Are you gonna lift them up in the air? Are you gonna, and it sounds stupid, like, oh, it's just different sword attacks, but they all do different things. And for the first game, it really does feel like what you start with changes how you do whatever. Like how you start an attack, combo, bridge combo, changes whatever. For certain enemies, swords don't work. For certain enemies, the guns don't work. So it's kind of like if you went through like hundreds and hundreds of just normal enemies, and you were using the sword, and you're like, oh man, I know this perfect strat that always works, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work. You kind of have to, use the guns and start from like, okay, well, what if I do this? And then you'll see that a barrier breaks or whatever. So because of like the different strategy you have to use with it, it still scores a B. It's still a lot of fun. I still love it. Now, we'll get into the next game. Devil May Cry 2. We're just going to show y'all now. It is a D. Devil May Cry 2 was a huge disappointment. Albeit the story is fine as far as like the character introductions and all that. However, it should have just been called Dante the Gunslinger, because using the swords in Devil May Cry 2 is fucking painful. Literally painful, because trying to bridge any type of combo string, any type of like uppercut attack, anything, it sucks. Just jump off the walls and shoot everywhere. That's how you beat Devil May Cry 2. And that's all I'm going to say about it. Other than I wish we saw more of Lucia throughout the series. That's it. That's it. Now you know what's next. You know what's next. It's Devil May Cry 3, and you're not going to be surprised, but it's going in the S rank. And the reason being is because of the massive, if you want to look at it one way, the massive bounce back after 2. So, I'm going to read you what I wrote. Was there any doubt After Dante the Gunslinger pistoled his way through Devil May Cry 2, we're met with an awakening story. The first time Dante feels the devil blood in his veins, with crazy boss fights and combat that's smooth. It's a high recommend all the way around. And honestly, I couldn't have typed it any better, because that's truly how I feel. I remember playing the games up to 3, and the first game being amazing, and I love the second game. Just because I ranked it low doesn't mean I don't love it. If I rank these games low, it doesn't mean I don't like them. It's ranking. It's just where they sit. It's where they sit in this clump. That's all. But when 3 got released, I remember like that was my jam forever. That and Metal Gear Solid 3, that was it. That's all, a lot of what I played. And then Tekken 5 came out, and I was like, yeah, these are the best games ever. But anyway, time to jump into 4. 4 was a solid game. 4 was good for an introduction to Nero. I keep speaking too quick. And the way it intertwines Nero's story with Dante's and Virgil's is beautiful at best, because it's not like something forced or stilted. It doesn't feel like, oh, well, this is, of course it's going to be like this. Like, you kind of get the hint when Nero has the arm and all that, oh, it's definitely this or definitely that. But I don't want to ruin it. Again, if you're just watching this, I don't want to ruin the story for people, and I probably did before because I keep going off track, but it's just what happens. Anyway, so for combat, for the music in it, for everything that happens, it's not entirely perfect, but it did change a lot of things that were introduced in 3, like the different combat styles, different, ways to play. It kind of changed how the switch combat and all that. It changed all the way around, because you were another character. But I don't feel like it was as hype as 3. So because of that, it's gonna go in the A. Hate me. I know you guys are probably hating me for this. What is this idiot doing? Why is he putting them all in the A's? I know, I understand, and I totally get it. However, we're gonna jump to 5 now, and for me, the way I feel about it is 5 is completely buttery. Like, the combat in it is amazing. It's slick. The story is good. There's new characters, and it doesn't feel like they're out of left field characters. It feels like that, they're in that universe. It doesn't feel forced, is what I'm trying to say. And they intertwine with each character so perfectly that it's honestly an S rank for me. Devil May Cry 5 is an easy S rank. Easy. For that buttery combat. You all saw how we beat Virgil that quick. I mean, not beat Virgil, but beat the game as Virgil as quick as we did. It was insane. It was the craziest thing we ever did. Craziest. So now, I'm gonna catch so much flack for this. So now we're jumping into the first Persona game. Okay, Revelations Persona. For me, honestly, because of only the continuity in the story, and its own continuity and not continuity with other games, it's a C for me. Because of things that happen throughout the game that just don't fucking make sense. No matter how many times you play it, no matter how many times you see it, they do not make sense. It doesn't make sense, and I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to ruin the game. However, I do think that the story of the first game is really good. There's just certain things that kind of bring it low, and it's not just that thing, but the random jumps and level you get throughout the game. So I remember playing, I think we were level 38. I was level 38 running through, and all of a sudden, literally after one cutscene, the enemies, I was facing 5 enemies that were like level 52 out of nowhere. Like, I should not have been nowhere near that. It should have been way lower than that, but those games were notorious. The first game was notorious for being a grind fest. Two, we're getting into now is a huge shift from the first game in strategy, character tropes, story, and feeling, and just feeling the presence of what's going on, like the almost like everyone's talking around you, the rumors are happening, you're watching the world change. It's almost a thriller as well as an RPG, just because of all of what happens. And you literally you kill Hitler, like his reincarnation, because they're like, oh, they brought him back with rumors, and you're like, why the hell would you bring him back? It's a whole thing. You gotta watch it. It's insane. You gotta watch it or you have to play it. One of the two. So for that, we're gonna throw this in the A. Originally, I was gonna put it in S, but it has its own problems too with the whole leveling and all that. But as far as like character development, the game's feeling, the game's playability, which I'm not saying that the first one's really good, and I do recommend it. I like 2 a lot more. 2 has a stronger place in my heart and in my mind, just because of everything that happens in that. Okay, now the next game. Oh, God of War Ragnarok? Let's just drag this up here. Was there really? How are we gonna sit here and not call this game anything but a masterpiece? From the story to action to characters, I can't find a single flaw other than Atreus being stupid annoying sometimes. And I don't really even have a problem with that. He's like a disgruntled teen, so, you know, whatever. It is what it is, you know. It's just one of those things. So, for me though, I love it. The music in the game, the gameplay, the action, the story, it's all so like perfectly woven. It's like it's a nice little basket that's homemade. It's perfect. Alright, you ready for the next one? The next game is Metal Gear Solid 1. That's right. The big bad of Metal Gears. Meaning one of the first one to get that big of a success overseas. I think. I don't think the first 2 games didn't. Well, Metal Gear 2 didn't at all, because we had a completely different Metal Gear 2. And Metal Gear 1 was badly butchered in the overseas release, meaning our release, because it was initially released in Japan. But Metal Gear Solid was a masterpiece. Oh my goodness, an absolute classic. Even to this day, if you pop in Metal Gear Solid 1, the story is still riveting. The controls are slick. The characters have so much life to them outside of their missions and standard dialogue. They're not just kind of like, especially for that time where character acting, but voice acting was so stilted. Like, you'd have a lot of games where they're talking like this. Like, the best example I could think of is the Resident Evil, the Master of Unlocking. But going back to it, the characters themselves are written with so much life that it helps bring Metal Gear. Even NPCs like Johnny Sasaki's in the first game. If you remember Johnny Sasaki from 4, he's in the first game. He's in the first game, just kind of like as a regular guard. And he ends up getting sick from Meryl back then. But I don't want to spoil the story. Anyway, even he, just being a side character at that time, has so much life to him outside of that. So, it's easily, without a shadow of a doubt, an S rank. For controlling, for playability, for all of that. For story, music, thematically. That's another thing I didn't really get into. Is the themes of it. Themes of these games they've all been really good, honestly. Really good. I can't pick if you were to ask me a favorite thematically through the series, that'd be hard to do. Really hard to do. Now, the next game is, Obviously, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. Although we played the Substance Edition, I think. I think that's what we had on the channel. It's still a lot of fun. I mean, yeah, you had Raiden, who was new to the series. I remember arguing with so many people saying, "But Raiden's good though. Like Raiden's still cool." Like I would argue to the teeth with people saying, sticking up for Raiden back then. Um, it was good. It was good. You could have had Solid Snake defeating Solidus and just done another brother on brother death, like where he's like, "Yeah, brother, I'll kill you, brother." But bringing in Raiden and having in that same relationship that Solid Snake had to Big Boss, and you finding out that Raiden isn't like in an experiment, is the biggest punch to the crotch ever. In a good way, in a great way. So because of that, it's not as high because it's, man, if I could, I'd put them all in the S rank because of like my personal thing. But a lot of, I have to go with a lot of people's gut instinct with the game too, where like there are some things that are wrong with it, but not much. There's not much wrong with it at all. If for me, nothing. But I can't just put all the Metal Gears in S rank. I have to be fair about this. However, the one that changed the whole scope once again was 3, and that's because you're not playing as Solid Snake, you're playing as Big Boss. Like one of the biggest missions that he had went on, as far as like, it's not the first, because a lot of people have that misconception that it's the first, but it's not, because he mentions, you know, being an experiment on Bikini Atoll, and he has background experience in different things. It's just the first virtuous mission, yeah, virtual mission, but the first virtuous mission he's done. So for me, what makes this, I'm just gonna forewarn you now, it's S rank, and the reason for that is because of the storytelling, it's because of the theme, it's because of the utilizing the camo, utilizing your environment. You can use resources around you to either distract the enemy, to either harm the enemy, to either get them asleep, or use, literally you can shoot a beehive that's near an enemy and the bees will go ape shit and attack the enemy, and that'll make an opening for you to just rush through. Like, what, how could you not? The style of it, even the time frame, like having it set in the 60s, you'd think like that might be a little weird, but it feels so good to have something that's outside of what's normal. Like even if it's only slightly, like then it was only 40 years, but even to have something that's only slightly different, and you're making mention of like, oh, they say, well, maybe in 40 years in the future, maybe 20 years in the future, there'll be this and there'll be that. It's like you have to think you had to think of what they were thinking about back then to be like the leaders of the whatever, the new generation type of thing, where you're developing things like modern technology, or you have different trend-setting stuff. So because the game doesn't only focus on the mission alone. I mean, there is talks of like Godzilla, Dracula, all that stuff, and it's not main story stuff, but it's still in there. There's so much in there. The way you can go about fighting enemies, it's easily by far. I would even say, if you know what, we're gonna do it like this. See how it's sitting up higher than Metal Gear Solid 1, and I love the first game, but it sits higher just because of all of what you can do with it. Literally all you can do with it. And now, since we're talking about Metal Gear Solid, we have another game. It's Unmetal. Personally, this game is a masterpiece. That's how I feel about it. I feel it's a masterpiece. It has a lot of shining moments, bridging the two worlds with the new generation. Like, in other words, like saying how it's not really common to use 2D graphics, and the way that they're used, while also poking fun at Metal Gear and like poking fun at 80s and 90s movie tropes. It's fun, funny, and it's not overbearing. It's not too much that you're like, okay, it's enough. I've had enough of it. But at the same time, it's so sometimes it's minute. It's the little things that are said, like when he says, "Oh well, I felt like a piece of cheese, and all the rats were watching," and all of a sudden you're playing as a piece of cheese. So what the hell is going on? It's it's amazing, but I feel like I have to do it, just because of how hard it makes fun of the series. I have to put it in the S. We haven't really been playing anything that's been awful on here. With three left, we got three left, and the next one is Tekken 3. But real quick, let me finish off on Metal with one thing. If you have not played it, I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. I honestly, I highly recommend all of them, even Devil May Cry 2. Any game that I have done on the channel, I don't hate. I actually enjoy them. So keep that in mind as we do this. Now, Tekken 3. I'm counting Tekken 3 because I played through, did all the endings with each character in arcade mode, and then we went ahead and did Tekken Force, which is basically like the story mode back when, Tekken first came out with it. With Tekken Force mode was the story mode. You beat the game and you just kind of see the different stages of what happens. Like at first it's the streets, and then it goes to wherever, and then it goes to whatever, until eventually we lead up to the Zaibatsu. And the stories in the arcade as well. That's the main. I don't know why my brain's all muffy. The main story is in the arcade mode. The kind of layout of how the map would work is Tekken Force. That being said, personally, this is probably my favorite Tekken. Actually, I could probably confidently say it is my favorite Tekken. I had 1 and 2, but playing 3, it just changed the whole series. That was the game that changed the series into how, I would even say, how it plays now. The fluidity of it, with the introduction of new characters and how it breathes new life without being too crazy with the new characters, how it's not too overbearing, and even the little minute stories in there are enough that you're like, oh, I want more of this, or can it just be about this or that? So it's going in the S. There's not much wrong with it as a fight, and plus it's a fighting game, so that's kind of hard. You can't. All of these have been pretty much story games, or whatever. And same thing going to be with this, for Def Jam fight. We're gonna do Raw Danger last, by the way, because I have the notes all right next to one another. So, anyways, for Def Jam and Tekken, it's kind of hard with those two because they are fighting games, and throwing them in with all these other games kind of feels wrong. It almost feels like you had a dirty rag and you wiped off the counter with that dirty rag, and you were like, nah, it's clean, but it don't feel right, and it's like you second guess it even though you rinsed it off before you wiped that counter off. You're like, I don't know about that. Anyway, I'll stop rambling. Def Jam Fight for New York. Oh, what a game. Literally, Snoop Dogg as a villain. If you want a game where Snoop Dogg is the villain by name too, it's not anything. Oh wait, no, it's not by name. It is. I can't open it in there. Hold on. That's right. His name was Crow. And you have Method Man as Blaze, Busta Rhymes as Magic. But they do have their names underneath, like it'll say Blaze, Method Man as Blaze. But at the same, okay, it is a lot of fun. The soundtrack is killer. We played it without the soundtrack because obviously we'd get copyrighted to death on here. It's a lot of fun. It is kind of clunky, but if you've played it when you're younger, then obviously the nostalgia factor is there. Everything is there. Making your own fighter and going through the story mode and like progressing with your fighter is what, in this crazy story where literally Snoop Dogg's the villain. It, he like wants you dead. It's crazy. It's awesome. And just the stupid crazy things that happen in between, like hitting on Lil Kim for no reason. So for me, that's gonna pit this in the B spot. A lot of people, I've seen rankings of this hit a lot lower and only hit higher because of the nostalgia factor, but I do genuinely think that between that Fight for New York and Vendetta, that Fight for New York is the dominant game of the two. And last but not least, Raw Danger. Oh, what to say about this? I remember picking this game up from the bargain bin. I was a teenager, and oh my god, it was a game about weather. It was a game about weather. You have to dress warm because there's a flood. The story is filled with problems. And I don't mean with, like, oh, well, we have to fix our way through this. I mean, there are parts that are supposed to be crazy serious, and you can't take them serious because of the way it's being delivered. Or you have silly ass interactions that take away from the moment. Like, you have a moment where you're reaching out. I'm going to just go ahead and say this, because I doubt any of you are going to play it. You have a moment where you're rescuing the chef, and it's like you've known this chef, and the girl you're with knows this chef. They've known this chef forever, and you have a moment where you can rescue him, and literally an option is to take his hat. Granted, it's hilarious, it's great, it's fantastic, and I don't mean just funny as in that. I mean, there are things that are said that it sounds insane because of the way it's being spoken, not because of it's supposed to be funny or whatever. It's how it's said or spoken. They're like, well, I think that what I just really, I can't even put it into words. It's crazy stilted. And while I love this game personally, just because of that, just because it's like, it's such a bad game that it's good. You guys ever had that? It's such a bad game that it's good, but not good literally. So the setups are hilarious because the stiltedness, and the game that's about weather doesn't handle weather well. Okay, so let me give an example. In one of the scenes, there are rising tides and the waves are crashing into the city, and it does not look like it. It looks bad. It looks like foam and seepage. It's bad. So because of that, I can't bring myself to put it into F, because part of me does love this game. However, it is a very, very, very low D. As a matter of fact, we're gonna put it right there, almost hinging on that rank right there. Well, we did it. That was each playthrough we have done. Now, obviously, I knew it was going to play out like this. I was kind of hesitant to do a ranking because I knew it was going to play out that, well, I have such good things to say about this or such good things to say about that. I don't typically hate a lot of games. There are some that I do not like at all, but I don't know if I'll be playing those on the channel. I've just been kind of looking for new games or games that I had played in my past to kind of just show people, if you haven't seen it or whatever. I mean, obviously a lot of these are fairly popular, if not super popular. I mean, with the height of the Persona series where it's at now, the height of the Devil May Cry, obviously Pokemon is like a huge name. Devil May Cry, I mean, a lot of these games are titans. So for me, I can't sit here and say, well, me introduce you to the world, because I'm not. This is just how I would personally rank it. I guess. I don't really have any regrets. I kind of feel good about it. Because I don't think too negatively about the games we've done on the channel. Other than Raw Danger. And like just the disappointment of Dante the Gunslinger. Which is Devil May Cry 2. Because you literally just wall jump and shoot everything. Like it feels disgusting playing that because of that reason. And Raw Danger just feels disgusting for the sake of feeling disgusting. But other than that, I mean, I don't see an issue with the list. I think it's, in my heart, I feel like it's where it should be at. With that being said, we made it. We did it. It's done. It's over. You don't have to hear me ramble anymore. You can go back to your normal, everyday lives, whatever that is. And also, because it's going to drop on Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving to you all. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you all. And 1K gang, let's go. Tune in for part 2 of this ranking stuff once we get another 20 games under our belt. Woo!